Director Peter? Do we have Director Collier?
I do not see him at this time.
Yeah, he's not listed, Julie.
Okay. Don?
I think we can go ahead and start.
Okay. We are not advancing yet.
Can you see the preamble?
Now I can see it. All right. Ohio's open law under COVID-19 emergency declaration. Notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City of Cleveland Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rule of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to the conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raised hand function before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand function can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon next to your name. Please wait for the chair or the facilitator to recognize you, and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finishing speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand function again and muting your microphone. We will be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can also be activated by clicking the chat button located in the bottom of the participants panel. All meeting activities are recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter, and those will be recognized during the presentation. Mr. Secretary, could you please call roll? Or I guess I will call the September 10th Landmarks Commission meeting to order. And Don, could you please call roll?
I believe it's on mute.
Bailey. Miss Bailey, we can't hear you. I see you though. Mr. Colicchio.
There you go, Don.
Madam Chair, do you want me to take the roll for Mr. Pettit?
Yes, why don't you take roll?
Okay.
Don, I think if you hit one of your lines, either your phone or your computer, then we'll stop the recording.
Hold on just a moment here. Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Colicchio?
Here.
Mr. Collier? Mr. Dreyer?
Here.
Mr. Harrison?
Here.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Tarasuk,
Here.
Mr. Harrison.
Here.
Did I miss somebody off the top of my head? Because I'm going by memory. Ms. Trott.
Bob
Here.
Strickland.
And Mr. Strickland.
Mr. Strickland, sorry.
It's okay, Carl.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent.
You called me twice, so I get to vote twice. Is that right?
You did.
All right, we're gonna, and Carl is not usually one who runs all this, so we're gonna give him a little bit of a break here because we appreciate his in taking this while Maurice is on vacation.
Just some preservation humor, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. We will begin with our public hearings. We have nothing on our schedule today. We will move on to our certificates of appropriateness. We'll begin with our first case, which is located at 12115 Mayfield Road, demolition and new construction. We'd like to call our applicant forward. At this time, you can use the raised hand function so that the facilitator knows to unmute your phones, and please state your name for our records and tell us about your project. And if everyone else could mute your phones in return while they do their presentation, it'd be appreciated.
Madam Chair, we have Travis Logsden with his hand raised.
Please go ahead.
Travis, can you? We also have Mr. Bozick there as well.
Mr. Traffic or Mr. Bozick, would you like to go ahead and tell us about your project? Or Mr. Loxton, sorry.
I don't think their microphone is working.
Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak on behalf of the project? Okay. Well, since we're having trouble connecting the applicant for case one, I cannot see him up on the screen. If you are okay with us moving on to our second case until we can troubleshoot what's going on with your mics, we can come back to you as soon as we can get everything working. Is everyone okay with that? Mr. Logston, I can see you on the screen now. We can, yep, we'll move on to the second applicant and we'll come back to you once we can get the mic situation fixed. We'll move on to our second applicant located at 12002 Mayfield Road, the installation of Rocky Cavato sculpture. And I believe we have Ms. Petrus to introduce the project for us.
Yes. Good morning, Commission. I did want to introduce this project. It's very exciting for Little Italy in Cleveland. I don't know how many of you know, Rocky Colavito was a former Cleveland Indian who is alive and well and living in Florida. And this is a great way to show homage and respect to him while he's still with us. The proposal that came, I've been working with members of the Italian American Brotherhood and the Little Italy Little Italy Design Review. I'm sorry, Little Italy Development Corporation on this particular project. They are in a fundraising stage. It did go before the Little Italy Design Review a couple of weeks ago. It was tabled based on a few concerns, and then it went back to them on Tuesday of this week, and it was approved unanimously by the committee, with one small change, which is I believe Forrest Page, the architect, will address during his presentation. I think it's a great addition to the park. And I am going to, with that, turn it over to Forrest Page from HSB Architects and Mr. Matthew Gambatis, who was very instrumental in bringing this project to the city. Again, it would sit in a city park, Tony Brush Park, so they'll be working on a licensing agreement with the city to install the sculpture in the park. And the sculpture is the work of one of our most talented sculptors in the area who's done a lot of other sports figures, David Deming. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Forrest. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear, Forrest.
Awesome. So with this project, we're looking to create a monument to Rocky Colavito's legacy as a Cleveland Indian. And the proposed location is in Tony Brush Park. In the location you can see here where there's an existing sundial, which has been left as a placeholder by the city until we have decided, or someone has decided to put some sort of monument or statue in that spot. And so with this project, it's essentially a wall, a small sitting wall behind a statue of Rocky Colavito in the center. And the wall will be made up, as well as the surrounding ground area, with bricks that people have donated money to help fund this project. So essentially anyone who values Rocky Colavito's legacy as a Cleveland Indian may be interested in donating to this project to be a part of the wall. And they could have a custom brick made out in any certain way with some sort of saying or their name or anything that they wanted to say about Rocky and contribute to the monument. So here you can see an aerial view. The small octagonal area is the location of where the statue is being proposed to be placed in the park, which should be essentially mirroring the statue on the other side of the park where they've already selected to place, I think, is that Christopher Columbus over there?
Yes.
Yeah, so it'd be pretty much completing the vision that they had for the park originally, to complete it with that second statue. Here's just a couple other views of that area. And here you can see what our proposed orientation would look like. The inspiration for the layout of it is a baseball diamond with home plate being the central concrete piece where the statue is on top of. And so you can see how it sort of sits in that same octagonal area that exists right now. And here's a more final view of a rendition of what it would look like when it's sitting in the park. You can see the low sitting wall behind it. Those black marble pieces right behind the statue are plaques for larger donors. And then all of the other bricks that you see surrounding the base and in the wall would be up for donors who are contributing to the project. Here's just another view so you can sort of see how the statue is elevated up on that platform that's 2 feet high with a plaque set into the front of it that has information about Rocky Colavito and things for people to read as they're admiring the statue. Here's just another view. Here's some dimensions to show clearances between existing benches and everything, so it shows it's nice and easy to move around the statue and the wall, so it won't be impeding any sort of movement throughout that public square area. And here you can sort of see the wall itself is the same height as the existing wall that's surrounding that planter bed back there, so it's very community friendly. You can sit on it. It's not obstructing the view of the park or anything because it's all the same height, so it just matches the same aesthetics that are already in the park. Here's just a little bit more detail and information about heights of things and different material textures. You can see the stone. We could go with a variety of different texture finishes that are shown there at the top. The three white pieces of stone. Then the two sizes of donation bricks. There's the 8x8s and the 4x8s. Differing monetary contributions will get you different size bricks. And yeah, that's a final view of kind of super imposition of what it would look like seated in the park as it is now. Yeah, if Mr. Gamatees, you'd want to expand on anything else that I might have missed?
Well, the objection that the committee had, the Little Italy Development Committee, was the color of the bricks. They want the red pavers for the basic floor foundation, but the wall bricks they want more compatible to the other wall behind it. And I have contacted the fundraiser brick company. They're sending me 3 samples that we agreed upon. They're lighter, blonde, softer color. So I'll be getting those in probably within the week, and I will bring them down there for the Little Italy Development Committee to look at and make a choice. I told them to get 3 choices, and the girl was very compatible to that. So they're sending me the bricks. I've contacted a marble company, and we're working on the marble or granite, whatever one we decide on, as far as the black back wall there. So all that has been approved by the Little Italy Development Company. And we made all the changes that they wanted. We took out the curbing so that it wouldn't have any obstruction and tripping or anything like that. The total base of it is flat to the ground. So that's about it, though.
Right, and you can see in this image the remainder area of that octagonal darker brick that would all be removed, and it would be filled in to match the surrounding stone in the square. And that the only issue that they had was, yeah, that back wall. They're thinking it might be too dark with that red brick, so we were proposing a lighter color just for the wall section to try to not make it so imposing.
And let me add to that, regarding the colors that they're referencing, the lighter colors, the colors that they proposed to Little Italy Design Review and were approved to choose from, if it means anything to the committee, would be tumbleweed, wheat field, and landmark gray. And they thought that any of those colors would make the back wall less imposing.
They're sending me those 3 samples.
Okay, thank you. Do we have someone from the committee to also speak about the presentation?
Yeah, Ray Christosik here. How
Hi.
are you?
Good.
Morning. Yeah, we looked at it at 2 occasions. We've been working with Matt for a while on this, and I think they did a really good job of putting the statue in the park. When we designed the park through our master plan in 2005 with the city, it was always, we wanted matching entrances with artwork in both spots. We had the Columbus statue that was in front of the church or front of the school. We were always looking for something or saving this placeholder for another piece of art. And we think this is something that will fit that space nicely. I think it'd be a great addition to the neighborhood. And I think it will definitely be a big attraction for visitors and neighborhood people alike. So we're very supportive of this. Like Matt said, we're going to look at the color of the wall. There was some concern about the wall originally, but we understand that that is a big piece of their fundraising part, and we think that the adjustments they made to it are very compatible with what else is going around. So we wholeheartedly support this, and we look forward to getting it going and seeing it up. So I think they've done a great job.
Excellent, thank you. I'll now open it up for commission members' feedback, questions, and comments. can use the raise hand function, and then we can start reviewing comments or discussing comments.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Harrison with his hand raised.
Go ahead, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm afraid I have not lived in Cleveland long enough to have known Rocky Colavito. So I'm just going to ask a very obvious, stupid, dumb question, which is, was he known as a great hitter, hence the pose of this statue, or was he known for other skills like his catching or whatever, or pitching? I don't know. I don't know which position he played. I'm sorry.
He played right field. He was known for his hitting. He hit 4 home runs in one game against Baltimore. And he was also known for his strong arm, where he could throw a batter out from right field at the plate on a fly.
Everyone's comfortable with this pose of him as a hitter.
Well, the most important person that's in favor of it, it was Rocky himself. We had several poses.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
thank you very much. I just wanted to confirm it. That's all.
I believe Mr. Tarasuk is next. His comments?
I think it's a terrific project. I have been a lifelong Indians fan, my family as well. I have had an opportunity to meet Mr. Colavito as well. So I think it's a wonderful project. I have a comment to make, not about the project itself, but it's going to sound silly, but the bricks and the donations for the bricks themselves. Years ago, when the Indians did Heritage Park, they did the same type of campaign, if you will, on the donation for the bricks. And one of the really neat things that they did that I would suggest, and I don't know if you have plans for this or not, but just as a suggestion, one of the neat things that they did was in donating for a brick there in the park, they also gave the person making the donation the opportunity to receive one of those particular bricks as a souvenir, as a memento, and the opportunity to purchase additional ones. And we did that with our family. We have a family brick that's there. Got a couple additional extra ones that have been a really kind of cool souvenir, baseball legacy that's been able to pass down to my nephews, that when they were little, they went and saw their name on their brick at that wall, and they were able to have one exactly the same at home to connect it. It's just kind of a cool souvenir type legacy that we've been able to pass down from my dad to those boys. So as a suggestion, I would make that suggestion to consider whoever does donate that they might be able to receive a replica to keep in their home or pass down as a souvenir. So that's my only comment. But I think it's a terrific project.
Well, these bricks that are donated are there for perpetuity. And that's the whole point. My family's going to have several bricks and plaques because I come from a large family. And they're all waiting to come down and see it. And I think that's one of the points. And you have a good point as far as a memento thing, but this is a fundraiser thing, and that's going to add to the expense of the project. I will take that into consideration to see how much donations we get.
I think part of the problem was that everything's already priced out.
Yeah.
And we didn't include anything like that. I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, having known about it in the beginning, maybe that's something we could have thrown in there for another $20 or something like that, $30. But it's priced out. It's not priced for that. Now, at the end of the day, if we get, a ton of donations, maybe anonymous donations or whatever the case may be, maybe that's something we can introduce.
Well, we also have structured into our costs, or not our costs, the project, that anything over and above the cost of this project is going to go into a scholarship fund under Rocky Colavito's name. Now, if there's a lot of money left over, that's a good thing. I would think a small little brick, these bricks are kind of heavy, I have a sample brick and I've been carrying it around with me and it's very cumbersome. But
It's
to
good
have
exercise. What are you complaining about?
I would say if there was I will talk to the brick company, the fundraiser brick company. If they have a smaller brick that is a duplicate of the brick, that's not a bad idea if it's a nominal cost. So I will keep that in consideration.
Again, it's not detrimental to the project at all. Just a suggestion that it was what the Indians did with Heritage Park. And
Yeah.
it was just a nice memento to be able to keep it. So
Well, we'll keep that in mind, and if there's room for it, we'll do it.
Thanks.
The next person is, sorry, Tara, I believe you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I don't recall if they mentioned it earlier and I missed it, but I wanted to know how one would go about making a donation, if there's a fundraising page or anything where people can go make donations.
Yes, there is. You can go to the Rocky Colavito, www.rockycolavito.statue.com, and you could go in through there, and there's a way to select the size of brick, the amount of donation, I mean the whole gamut.
www.rockycolavito-statue.com.
No, www.rockycolavitostatue.com.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, I have Ms. Daly with her hand raised.
I just would like to know what the material of the statue is made out of.
It's going to be a bronze. The statue's built out of clay right now, and it will be bronzed. And the city informed us that they do not want to be responsible for the statue. So we have the Italian American Brotherhood who are going to polish the statue twice a year to keep it bronze looking, or from turning green, I guess. And they've already accepted that challenge. Their membership is quite large, and they're all in favor of this. And their clubhouse will be right across the street from this statue, within about maybe 30 yards. So they'll have access to it 24 hours a day if they have to. And
how's the lighting over there at nighttime to see the statue? I'm not saying to light the whole thing, but are you including lighting, or is there a street pole nearby or anything? Or
I think Greg Stosik might answer that question, because the park is already there. I'm not sure what lighting there is, but he can fill you in on that a little bit more.
There are lights on poles like spotlights that actually access both of the entrance areas, which we think it's not like lighting. It won't be lighting directly on a statue, but it lights that whole little plaza area. So I think the lighting would be sufficient for what we're doing here.
Mr. Harrison, do you have your hand raised next?
Yes. I'm sorry, bronze does not need to be polished twice a year. So please take advice from conservation specialists before undertaking that kind of work. And it needs also to be cleaned, but cleaned with very specific materials. And I would suggest the Art Museum has 2 very fine bronze conservation specialists on its staff, and they would be more than delighted to advise and help you come up with an appropriate cleaning and maintenance scheme for that. But you'll be pleased to know that you will not have to polish it twice a year.
Well, this was the recommendation of David Deming. I have no idea what to do.
You know, I'm just telling you as a museum curator and professional. So you can take that with whatever faith you have. So that's fine.
That's welcome news. And we will take it to, we will contact the art museum and find out what their procedures are. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions and comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, I'm showing no other hands raised except for Mr. Tarasek, who may have his raised from earlier.
Well, I'll make my comments now, and then Mr. Tarasek, if you have any further, you can go from there. I mean, I think it's a great proposal. My only comment would be about the color of the wall brick. So I'm happy to hear that you are open to changing that to something that still achieves your goal to provide recognition of your donors, but not be not stand out as and blend more with the walls that are behind it. So I think if you're open to that, which it sounds you are, then I think this is a great proposal. Mr. Tarasek, do you have further questions or comments?
No, I apologize. That hand was left up from before. Thank you.
Okay.
in case anybody's interested, is it going? In case anybody's interested, Forrest has some pictures of the 3 samples that they built. I don't know, Forrest, if you can pull that up and show them, give them an idea. I know pictures don't give you a lot, but at least they'll give you an idea of the color change. So, Forrest, you have that, put it up.
I think we are limited of sharing screens to Tater, so we appreciate it. We'd love to see those samples. If you could forward them over to staff, along with, when you're making that decision, that would be wonderful. Once you have the physical samples.
I'll have them in a week.
Perfect. If there are no other questions or comments from the commission, would someone like to put forward a motion?
I'll make a motion. The staff presented, approve as presented as is, and that the background stone replacing the black color be presented to staff. For review.
I think it's actually to clarify that. Is your motion to replace the color of the red base stone to an alternate color that goes with the surroundings?
Oh, I see. So it's the red colors that's being mashed in the stones behind, not the black granite?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I'm gonna redo the motion. The motion is to approve the position as is, changing the color of the red background, and that the color brick be presented to staff for review and approval.
And that's related to
the wall. Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion with these conditions. Do we have a second?
This is Bob.
Second with that.
I'll second that motion.
All right, well, we have 2 seconds, so that's good. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to let the participants know that I just sent them through chat the emails for the 2 conservators at the Art Museum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's no further discussion, Mr. Pettit, could you please call roll and announce the results?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm back, although you can't see me. My camera's not working. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia,
Yes.
Mr. Collier, Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasek,
Yes.
Ms. Trot.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing your project constructed. When's the timeline to do the installation?
Sometime in the spring, we're going to have Rocky come in and have a dedicated, hopefully opening day. That would be great, but I don't want to pinpoint exact date.
Well, excellent. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time,
Now-
everybody.
Thank you. We'll now move back to our first applicant for certificate of appropriateness located at 12115 Mayfield Road, demolition and new construction. Have we fixed the mic situation?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, I have a speaker.
There it is.
Sorry.
What is it?
Project.
Okay, I'm Rich from Blatchford Architects. Next to me is Travis Luxton, also from Blatchford Architects. Fatmir is the owner, and he may join us by phone, but he was very uncomfortable trying to work with a video setup. So I think we're comfortable moving ahead without him if he's not here. Our initial program was to look at the building that's next to the Maxi restaurant. The Maxi restaurant in this photo is the kind of pinky salmon color building. And then our building is next to it, which is white with kind of two kinds of brick below. It's been changed over the years. It is leaning to the right right now. And the folks that visited with us about a week or so ago had an opportunity to walk through and see the condition of the building. Unfortunately, there really isn't a great opportunity to try and save the building because it's in really bad shape. So his initial goal was he had spent enough time looking at the building and felt that he really needed to replace it because his desire as a new program is to have another restaurant in this location with a party room above. So that's his main goal right now. And he's done really well. He has a similar setup at Maxi right now with the restaurant on the first floor and a party room up above. And he's always booked for events and feels that there's an opportunity to make a good go at this same kind of situation. It would be a slightly different restaurant. It wouldn't be the same kind of foods and stuff. So on the first, on S1 here, you can see that's the existing building that's there, which will be removed. Now, we did talk about the possibility of saving some of the tin ceiling in the front area only. There's an old original tin ceiling. We don't know what kind of condition it will be in as we remove it, but the possibility is there of taking that down and possibly using it over the new bar or even in the two restroom spaces on the first floor. So we're going to have to kind of very carefully take the building apart, almost like dismantling it, and protect the two other buildings on the side, and take everything out the back. So there's an alleyway that is accessible to all of the stores along this side and restaurants, and then there's a parking area. So we have some flexibility of getting trucks and stuff in there to pull things out and then take them away. So, but it will be a kind of a slow, careful process, so we don't do any damage to anyone. So we also know that we're going to have to shore the basement areas because we're going down a little bit deeper than the basement that's there right now, which is, I think, only about has about a 6'6" ceiling, and so that some engineering that's going to have to happen to make that work. So in the next drawing, it shows the proposed plan. We're about 12 or 14 feet. I think it's 14 feet longer than the existing building that's there. But we have an accessible entry right now. And you come in, there's a small dining area, a bar, and then there's a couple of different dining clusters, we'll call them. The two restrooms are in the back. There's a janitor's closet. The kitchen, which is a little bit larger than the one that is Maxi right now. So there's a stairway along the side, and then there's also a stairway at the back. We need 2 exits for both the second floor and for exiting from the basement. In the basement, there will be a prep room, a small office, and then, of course, the food storage and all that is down there. A1 is showing you the new building that we're proposing. It's a brick building, and it's an end glass. It's a very long, narrow space inside. So Fatmir kept pushing to get as much glass on the street as he could have. both the first floor glass and the second floor glass will open up like a nano wall system. If you wanted that option, and then there's a balcony on the top floor or the second floor that would allow some folks to dine on the balcony, or for the special events, they can open it up much larger. So the brick we're working with is similar to the brick on the high school. We kind of looked around the neighborhood, and there seems to be more red brick or reddish brick or red tan brick options. We initially did not have a brick option when we went through the Little Italy review board. Actually, when we went through talking with Ray, he suggested that we bring a brick character into the building. So we did. We have been through the Little Italy review process and have been approved. So the second floor has a clear clear story element and have a cathedral ceiling. If you go to, I think the next, where's this? Yeah, you can sort of see in the building section. So on the right side is the balcony, and you're into the upper kind of cathedral area for the party room, and then it goes back along there. There's another set of restrooms and a small kind of prep area for the stuff that's coming up. There's a dumbwaiter that he wants to have between the floors. There'll be some prep in the basement, also in the kitchen area, and then you'll be able to, bus dishes and food up and down. The two side elevations here, a lot of which will be covered by the adjacent buildings, but we're bringing the brick around the corner on each side to kind of wrap the corner. And we're going to a vinyl siding that's a soft color, part of the maintenance element in terms of over time, not have to worry about painting. We did have a wood option, similar to a couple of the other buildings on the street, and then in talking it through, the Little Italy folks were okay with using the vinyl option. So, in the back, there is on the one little elevation. There's an awning and just a door, exit door to the back area. So, and then we're using some brick on the lower level and the vinyl at the top, and then the gable that you're seeing is actually the upper part of the stairwell that comes up there. On the side elevations, you can see that there's kind of a up and a down. There's a little bit of a breakup. It works nicely for us in terms of how the spaces inside will have a little variety in terms of height. It's also kind of a little bit of the character. Most of those buildings along the street started out as one building, and then they added to the front or to the back, and they kind of had a rhythm of old and new stuff put together. This is all new, of course, but it may give a little bit of that character that's there. So materials are, again, the brick, the glass. We're using a basic bronze for the framing of the doors and the windows, the railings. So the one railing in the front. I think covers most of what we're proposing, and we feel that the scale of the building is we're a little bit taller. We're about 4 feet taller than the building that's there right now. Again, we're trying to get those slightly higher spaces so we can pull some light back in. We don't think it's a glaring change to the character of the street. We have the gable end that is similar to what was there, not exactly the same slope, but not exactly the same front. And we think it's kind of just a comfortable form that's simple and clean, brings some of that same character that the street has now. So. Open to your questions and comments.
Excellent, thank you. Can we first hear the staff review from the site walkthrough?
Madam Chair, this is Carl. First, give some history in the photos of the location prior to current. There was no original building permit for this, but it is prior to 1894. I found reference to a Charlie Sons or Zons bar restaurant, which was actually the site of a stabbing murder in that year. It was later a laundromat, which was the victim of a bombing. in the 1940s. And then by the 50s, you can see Louis DiPaolo's agency, travel agency. There was a lot of changes. That storefront that's in that 1954 picture was added in the 30s. And then you see the one in the 1962, they were the ones that put in the quote modern facade, but I think the window has been opened more since then. And that's where they rearranged that entire storefront was in 1962. So your current conditions are from that year. We did the site visit on the 2nd, which poured rain right before we got there. And you can actually, standing in front of it, you can see the building leaning. It is partially held up by the ATM that's in the front lobby. And it is very close. You can see with the gutters and very narrow. Our different exteriors. Out the rear. And then our interiors, you can see this was probably added in that 1962 renovation to give more support when they changed the storefront. The ceilings that they mentioned earlier. That's the stairway down into the basement. You go up the flight of stairs, and there's it bisects right and left, and we went to the right first. And then back over to the left, and there's the stairway up to the attic. We'll come back to that in a minute. This is on the left side. This is in the front portion of the building.
Good photos.
And that's all the site visit photos.
And what was the general feeling from the staff related to the building? That it was in poor condition, good condition?
It's in poor condition. There's water infiltration. There's quite a bit of damage there's flooding or water in the basement. Roof is leaking. It is leaning quite a bit. It's lost a lot of its, although it's been more than 50 years since the changes. It doesn't have its original character. I don't know how viable of a fix this would be because there is some sagging in the ceilings in different areas as well. I know Mr. Harrison was there. He could probably speak a little bit to this. And Don, you were also there if you want to put in your notes on this.
Well, it's definitely leaning. There's a real pitch to the floors on the upper stories. In the alley between, the posts have been added to prop up the second floor that's leaning there. It's really close to the neighboring building to the east. It's really tough to make a case for restoring this building. I don't think it's architecturally significant. It's been altered. It does contribute to the streetscape, but it seems like the conditions really belie a restoration in this case.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to add.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Harrison.
If I could, from the site visit, there are remaining significant interior architectural embellishments, such as the 10 ceiling on the front in the front room lower level. And I think that those should be at least removed and salvaged if this building comes down. As well as upstairs, there are a couple of mantelpieces, at least one I recall. There you see the ceiling. It's in excellent condition. And, it's getting more and more rare to find these in their original condition and in situ. So I'm not saying they must retain it in the new building, but it shouldn't be just tossed into the dumpster as demolition proceeds. So that was one comment I have. The other is, while this building isn't terribly significant from an architectural standpoint, what is significant about it is its place on the street, and it is a part of a streetscape that has a rhythm, and that should be discussed when and if we go to discussion of the new construction, because I know that there are some ideas about the new construction that would raise the height of the building above its others, and you can see how this building fits in like a piece of a puzzle. And I think that that's important in a streetscape, particularly in one that is so active and so vital to the character of the neighborhood. So I just want to mention that for further discussion when we get to it. But I agree with everything else. The building, unfortunately, has suffered greatly through the years, and so maybe one more bomb blast and it would be fine. It'll be gone. So.
Excellent, thank you. Do you have feedback from the local committee?
Yes. I wasn't at the site visit, but I've been in that building many times over the years. I think from based on the history, there was never a foundation on the one corner where you saw the ATM, and that building's been sagging, over the course of time. Actually, the ATM enclosure, I believe, has kept it up for the last 15, 20 years. We, as a group and as an organization, when we talk about demolition in the neighborhood, it's always a big issue with us, especially Mayfield Road and Murray Hill, which we think are our two main streets. But in this case, we think that we're okay with the demolition based on the conditions. We do not think it would be very difficult to restore it. We've been working with the owners for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And what you see is their new proposal the first rendition was actually a story higher than that, which we really convinced them that it didn't make sense. One, it would be out of character with the street, even though this is a little bit out of the height from the other ones. But the other one actually looked like a rocket ship. And I know they wanted to try to get outdoor rooftop patio, but after talking to them several times, they ordered a story, which we think is a much better design. So we approved this, and I believe it was unanimous, or it was one vote that was against it, but we approved the design based on the site visit, and the site visit, I think, was evidence that the demolition is acceptable at this location.
All right, thank you for that feedback. I'll now open up the floor for commission questions, comments.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Strickland with his hand raised.
Go ahead, Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question in terms of salvage. I really don't have a problem with the demolition. But in looking at the pictures, it looks like, I'm assuming the entire basement, the entire foundation would be removed as part of the demolition. I wonder if there's an opportunity to save any of that foundation stone. And maybe Giancarlo, would have more experience if there's a repository for salvage stone of that nature for reuse. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Harrison.
Go ahead, Mr. Harrison.
You're muted, sir.
I'm so sorry. I would echo Commissioner Strickland's comments and his question to Giancarlo. So, is there a repository that could take these stones, assuming they're in good condition?
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay. Sandstone, when exposed to moisture for a long period of time, and these foundations are typical of Cleveland, but it actually gets very, very soft and sandy. It begins to fall apart. So I'm not sure.
I think these are limestone, though. I think these are limestone.
Sandstone. This is sandstone. I'm pretty sure it's sandstone.
Okay.
Which is sandstone. Even the bridges that we will be sandstone. The largest quarries in the world are right here in Ohio. So it's a very common material initially, historically in Cleveland. But these basements have been exposed to moisture for such a long time. So I mean, it would be interesting for a wall or maybe landscaping, but I'm not sure that it would be something worth saving, really.
Thank you, Giancarlo, for that input. It just looks like, such historical stone that I thought maybe there was a convenient repository for reuse of stone of that nature. But if it breaks down over time due to exposure to moisture, then I understand your point.
I believe Mr. Watson had his hand raised next.
This is Rich. We truthfully did not discuss the saving of the stone. I can bring it up with the owner. It's from his viewpoint, everything that's there except for those few items. And there's also a barber pole, by the way, on the front that will be retained and used somehow because his wife previously had the La Barberia hair salon there, which has been closed for a while. But I think I'll talk to him, but I don't think there was a lot of any conversation, frankly, about the saving of the stone, but we can certainly discuss it.
Okay, that would be wonderful, obviously, knowing the heritage of the stone in this area, especially. Ms. Bailey, I believe you had your raised but then lowered. Did you have feedback, questions, or comments? Ms. Bailey?
Yes. I just have a question for the architect regarding to the foundation. I see some bricks in there. Is the actual foundation built with brick and then the stone is just put on the wall as a finish? Do you know that?
No, we believe it's stone. There's some brick infill that's been used over time, but the main foundation is stone.
It's stone. Okay. All right.
My question for logistics here, are we looking at as a final review for both the demolition and the new proposal, or just the demolition at this time? Since this is the first time we're seeing this project.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is on the agenda for final action for the demolition and the new construction, but that's always at the discretion of the commission. we felt that because the design review committee had taken this through a process already and approved it, that it could be approved for final action. But if there are outstanding items that you're not seeing or other issues, then I think we always have the option of tabling the new construction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. Other questions or comments from commission members?
Madam Chair, we have Ms. Anderson with her hand raised.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
I agree with the demolition. This building does seem to be structurally compromised, and I think it would be just not feasible to try to right the leaning and try to make it usable as it is. My concern about the building that's going to be replacing it is at least it looks like vast majority of the facade is glass. I can understand that the owner wants as much natural light as possible. It's just that it is so inconsistent with the other structures on the street. The structures on the street have a nice rhythm and pattern to them, not only in size and scale, but and openings as well. I think the original designer probably had this same concern about natural light. That's probably why they introduced the bay windows. So that's my concern, that I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bailey?
Can we make comment on the new construction now, or are we just still talking about the demolition?
No, go ahead. I think we're talking about both.
Okay. I did hear the history in regards to what this building was in the past, and I heard that the building height was taller than the two on the side. But I do have a code question for city planning in regards to the new one in relation to the percentage of window lighting shown on the front elevation. Is that still applied to this situation? There's a percentage of windows that you have to show in the front.
This is not in a pedestrian retail overlay district. So as far as I know, there's no requirement for glazing on the street frontage. It's really more of a design issue for us.
Okay. Well, I like what was I have some issues of the glazing, the positions of the Martin and the lining of the location of the horizontal framing, window framing, and the height of the pitch. So I understand that the owner and developer wanted to bring more lighting into the building. It seemed like it's almost out of place in relationship with the other surrounding area. But that's why I was asking that question about the percentage allowable lighting, glazing on the front elevation. So that's my comment as far as the front elevation. Possible looking at limiting the amount of glazing shown, but you can still have enough to have a lot of lighting coming in, because it seems that's the intent of the design. And also, I'm not saying to lower the height, but somehow make the design appear as though it's blending in with the two sides of the building somehow. And also, could you explain what this large piece grade between the white building, and the new construction, is that a wall or something? I wanted to know what that is. And also, based on the existing condition, how close the building that's gonna be demolished. Just wondering how much space is between the two side building. Can that not be repeated? Somehow create some space in there between the two buildings that's not coming down. So those are my comments right there.
Would the applicant like to respond to any of those questions or comments?
Okay, this is Rich again. In terms of the glazing, we've gone back and forth many times with Fatmir, and his real desire is to get a lot of light into the space. We have a drawing, I want to say a sketch that we sort of like a nighttime sketch that shows if all of our glass was lit up and then the two neighboring buildings to our side. And can we show this? I don't know if you can see that. It's clear, obviously, that we have more glass than the other two, but you'll see that there's actually quite a bit of glass, certainly on the ground floor, and then again, if you light up all the windows above. The other positioning element, besides being part of Mayfield, this building is almost on the access with Murray Field, the street coming down. And our thought is that it will serve, at least at night, if there's a special event going on, as kind of a beacon or a lantern at the end as you're coming towards Mayfield. So I think it serves another element there that could be an interesting addition to the overall street.
We can't hear the comment. I'm sorry. Could you maybe repeat that closer to the mic?
Can you move the slide to the building section?
Can you go to the building section? Slide.
The one thing to consider is that right now in that elevation we were looking at, it looks like a sheet of glass from top to bottom, but the upper story is actually set back. So that glass is not a sheet of glass.
Madam Chair, this is Bob Strickland. I can't hear any of these comments. I don't know if anyone else can hear them.
I can't either.
Sorry, is that better?
That's better. Coming closer to the mic, I could hear that it's not a sheet of glass, that the top is set back some, but could you repeat after that?
Yeah, I'll just restart. One thing to consider when the elevation we were looking at, it looks like a sheet of glass, like a skyscraper. But we've worked quite a bit to push that upper elevation back. So you have the storefront at the street, very similar to actually a project we did down the road for Mia Bella Restaurant. So it ties in very, very much there. And then we set that upper floor back. So it's about 10 feet back. So it's not going to read like a sheet of glass. It really will sort of read similar to what the street has, where there are sort of those pushes and pulls at the first floor, the second floor. And it with the structure in front will sort of push that glass back. It should mitigate that sort of skyscraper feel that I feel like sort of people are reacting to in the elevation. It's not going to feel that way. I'm not sure how to, other than that section, to show you that though.
Okay, that is helpful to understand because I didn't pick up on that personally myself. So I guess I'll just, I can give you my comment. I think the feedback related to demolition sounds like it's appropriate to remove that building based on the structural conditions that it currently is in. My feedback on the new construction is I feel like it's similar to the comments that have been made. It's still probably a little too tall. I don't know if you have a 12-12 pitch on that roof, but the transom and roof pitch compared to your neighbors feels like it's just the proportions aren't as in harmony with everything around it.
We believe that it matches.
It does not.
Um,
It looks like it's, I don't know if the adjacent neighbor to the right is a 1212 or 12. It's sort of hard on my small,
okay.
that one out. But based on its height, I think the transom above your windows is what is throwing the scale off, meaning
I agree.
you have your second floor doors and then the transom above it. And now that I understand that it's the triangle in the gable that is back out at street front, I just still think it's a little out of proportion. If the building was lowered some, still achieve the glass, or I don't mind the glass in the gable, but that's the one thing that's really sort of sticking with me and holding me up from related to the design is that the height still feels a little too tall, and because of it, the pitch doesn't feel like it's relating to the pitches directly to the neighbor, to the right. And I apologize, I don't know which direction that is, but we'll just say right in the rendering.
If we were to match the height of the building that was there, would that make you feel comfortable, or would we have to go lower to make you feel comfortable?
I personally think, and I think Mr. Harrison said it, is that, the beauty of what's there right now is that you have this nice, very urban, corridor that is very different in its pieces, but blends together because of its, consistent, height. So if you match the height of the existing building, or that's currently there, or the one directly to the right, that would make me feel better about the design, because it would blend in to what was originally there, but the modern interpretation, would could then be applied.
Okay.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
And my only other question was that you just brick, but do you have samples of the brick and the storefront colors and what colors you're proposing within this pack?
We do. I don't know how well this will show, but that's the brick color. This is the grout, so it's not a regular grout, but it's going to soften the connection with the brick. This is the bronze or the window frames.
Is that a medium or a light?
It's the statuary bronze, so it's the medium.
Okay.
This is the roof color, which is a soft taupey, a little bit of mixture as typical with shingles. And the awning in the back is this kind of a taupe color and soft. And the siding, vinyl siding, which is, sorry.
Madam Chair, this is Bob Strickland. I would just like to comment that I think that the applicant has done a fine job in terms of presenting materials that allows us to make a determination in terms of the appropriateness for demolition of the existing structure. But there's just not the level of detail that we're used to seeing in terms of providing a final approval for new construction. So in my opinion, I just don't see enough information here for us to appropriately evaluate this project for final approval. So I can't support this based on the presentation material that's been provided.
We understand that we have a whole set of working drawings to do. So right now we're after the approval of a concept. The frustration with many owners is that you go through a whole set of drawings and then the boards don't approve them, and they've spent a lot of cash up front. So I think our initial goal in this was the approval of a concept, and I don't know if that's a possibility. If we lower it 4 feet to bring it to its original height, Is that an acceptable possibility that we can then move on to the drawings and then bring back the set? Or are you saying this kind of a building you don't want there at all? No.
Mr. Strickland, want to respond to that based on your comment?
Yeah. So again, with our process, typically always we require the presentation of a Sept design for the building that would replace a proposed demolition of an existing historic structure or a structure in a historic district. And this is a fine presentation, gives us a great idea of what's planned in concept as a replacement structure. And so we try to provide the applicant with specific inputs in reaction to the concept that's presented. But the question that the chair asked was whether this was intended to be approval of a final design, which my comment would be that I don't think we have sufficient information. We're typically asking questions with regard to handrail design, specific handrail design, details at the balcony, samples of the curtain wall or storefront elements of the design. So we're looking for much more detail in terms of a final design working drawings. But so hopefully we've given you sufficient input to help guide you in completing the concept and working towards, final working drawings for future presentation for final design approval.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Harrison, Ms. Anderson, and Mr. Pettit with their hands raised.
Okay, we're going to go to Mr. Harrison because I do see, as mentioned at the beginning, he does need to step away here in a second. So go ahead, Mr. Harrison, and then we'll go to Ms. Anderson and Mr. Pettit.
Yes, I would, just to quickly answer your question, I was quite vocal about I have been all along about the height. And so if you lowered it to the level of the two buildings on either side, especially the one to the west, I would support that. I personally don't think that the glazing in the tympanum of that gable is necessary or even attractive. But for me, Chairman Trott said it just right, that the height, unfortunately, is messing with the proportion of the building and the pitch. And so visually, and I think that if you lowered it, you'd have a more successful design. So I'm hoping we can vote on the demolition while I'm still here, but I'll have to leave shortly.
So what I'm hearing is that, and I don't think it was exactly said, it sounds like in general we support, supports the direction you are taking it with the feedback of the height and wanting to see a little bit more detail on materiality and its exact locations. You've done, you're trying your best to present it through the screen, but having a close-up of the building with the materials called out so we could understand the railings and colors and so forth would allow us then to get to a final approval very quickly.
Okay.
So is there other feedback from the commission that is in contradiction of that? Or do you think we could put forward at least a demolition of the tabling of the new concept?
The only comment I made earlier, and Chairwoman made when I was talking about the height and the location of the transom, the horizontal line. But I still haven't heard, because the sound kept breaking up, why that large piece of vertical element is on that side. I haven't heard that. The sound kept breaking up on my end. Why is that piece there?
Okay, that's
the stairs.
Yeah, if you look at that's the stairs popping out, so you're seeing the front portion of that, which we.
Okay, so that's the stairs. Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right, go ahead.
Ms. Anderson, did you have? Oh, you just muted yourself.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Mr. Strickland, and the drawing of the actual building, at least on my computer screen, is maybe an inch tall, and it's really hard to discern what exactly is being proposed here. I think we need just a full elevation, drawing of the elevation, the materials, so we get a better handle on what is going to be built.
So, and basically echoing what was said before, I think everyone is in support of the demolition. We have a few different ways to move forward on this. We could move forward with voting on the demolition only and tabling the concepts to allow them to come back or review the new proposal for concept only and not vote on that, which would then allow them to come back for the new concepts for final approval in the near future. Or we can review and vote on the two together. I guess I've heard fairly loudly that we'd like to review the proposal as a concept only to give you the opportunity to address some of our feedback, but it's really up to you as the applicant if to either agree with that recommendation or you can ask us to vote on both.
If you're willing to vote on both, I mean, you have good comments, and we're obviously willing to work with them to come to a resolution that you're comfortable with. So it'd be good to get as much feedback on the votes as possible.
You do take the risk of getting not approved.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Where if we
probably don't want that. You're right. Thank you.
So with your permission, we can not review your new proposal for final, but review it for concept, which is our typical process.
Okay.
And then you can come back in the near future as soon as 2 weeks, if there's room on that agenda, to present the final proposal with taking our feedback into consideration.
Okay.
Do you agree with that proposal?
Yes, sounds
approach?
good. Yes.
Okay. With that, would someone like to put forward a motion?
This is Bob Strickland. Madam Chair, I'll propose approval of the demolition of this structure as proposed with the salvage of the tin ceiling in the interior and consideration of review and salvage of some of the stone elements in the foundation that might be appropriate for reuse, and to table the approval of the final design.
We have a motion with conditions. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, but to salvage at least the mantles, a mantle or more on the second floor.
Yes, I think all historic material should be reviewed for salvage,
Amend my motion to include that.
So we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Secretary, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson. Ms. Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia.
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer.
Yes.
Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik.
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. So hopefully you've received enough feedback related to the new proposal and its design, and we look forward to you come back here in the near future to with some revisions and or a blow up that we can see and understand the materials a little bit better.
Great. Thank you for your input.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our third applicant, which is located at 4427 Rocky River Drive. Cemetery wall fencing and signage upgrades, I'm assuming, at St. Patrick's of West Park Church.
Yes. Hi, this is Jim Schillens speaking. And the proposal is for a fence and columns to protect the cemetery at the church. There currently is a black chain link fence that is approximately 3 feet high, and it is not deterring vandalism and damage to the cemetery. Consequently, the church has asked us to develop a plan of a higher fence, something that would look appropriate, similarly black in color, an aluminum fence with columns, and then also a title or a somewhat of a signage for the corner for the cemetery, which would say St. Patrick's Cemetery in a wrought iron black above the aluminum fence, as shown in the top left corner of the drawings. They also need some help with drainage in between the church and the cemetery. Currently, the downspouts and the drainage are very poor, primarily because of the age. And what we've proposed there is to tie in the downspouts with the with new drainage that would tie into a catch basin in their parking lot that is very close. Just to the east of the cemetery, there's a catch basin that these would tie into, and that they originally did, but they have become either separated or clogged. So the area between the cemetery and the church is going to be demolished, removed, and then new piping put in for the downspouts and drains. New curb at the cemetery to keep the water in the cemetery separate from what drains onto the sidewalk, and then a new curbing surrounding to allow them for a little better maintenance of the edges of the cemetery as well. There currently is a large tree on the northeast corner, and that tree is going to be protected during construction with fencing and maintained. They would like to keep it. And that's about it. We'd like approval. Oh, the columns would be a masonry column, but would be faced with a sandstone facade, natural sandstone, to match the church.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Is there anyone else here to speak on behalf of the project? I believe the councilman may be present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here just to express my full support for this project and thank all of you for your consideration. This is obviously a landmark corner in the neighborhood, and it's exciting to see this proposal for that corner to be made just as pretty as the church behind it is.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Yes, Madam Chair. This was reviewed by the Far West Design Review Committee. They approved it as presented. Their only condition was saving that tree in the northeast corner, possibly by not installing one of the pillars near the corner, but their only concern was with the retention of that tree.
I'm sorry, are we able to retain that tree? Did I miss that? Or is that having to be removed?
Yes, it is a mature tree, a very mature tree, and it is probably at its at a point where it's in slight decline, but it's still healthy. So what we've done on our plans is we show a protection for the tree during construction. So the contractor is to erect an orange construction fence beneath the drip line of the tree and stay out of that area as much as possible. But however, there is a column in the corner um, uh, that we're proposing that it is about 7 foot or so from the trunk of the tree. But at that point, there is already pavement there anyway. So we're protecting it as much as we can, but there is some construction within that drip line. So, and being that the tree is mature, we're doing everything we can to save it, but there's no guarantee, of course, when a tree is that old and in somewhat decline, although it's healthy enough that it should be able to withstand that construction. We're not going to be covering any more surface that's not already covered, except for a curb and that single column.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Questions or comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, this is Bob Strickland. Didn't have time to raise my hand, but to that specific point with regard to that tree, in addition to the orange fence protection that you've stipulated for the contractor, if you could add that root pruning should be done where that new column is proposed, that would avoid damage to the roots from an excavator excavating for that foundation. It's a minimal cost to specify pruning those roots prior to construction.
Okay, we could add that to the notes.
Other questions or comments from the commission?
This is Adrian. I'll just raise my hand. To the architect, the height of the sign gate, the corner sign is roughly 9 foot high. How tall is that, the overall height? And the fence itself in between the piers is 6 foot. Could you explain the height?
Yeah, so the site does vary substantially in grade. The average height of that fence is 5'9" above grade, but the actual fence itself is 5'1". So it's up a bit because of curbing that we're showing to be installed for maintenance underneath the fence. Currently, a chain link fence, they have a bit of a problem with maintenance. Even a weed whacker in there doesn't quite do it, so they spend a lot of time right underneath the fence. Consequently, we put a concrete curb below it, an 8-inch curb that's going to help with that maintenance. But overall, then it lifts the fence slightly. But the fence itself is 5'1", and then there's an 8-inch curb below it to maintain the lawn area and separation between it and the sidewalk. Signage out front, the signage is placed on top of a masonry knee wall, and it itself is about 6'7" above the knee wall, and the knee wall is approximately 2 feet.
Also, I'm looking at one of your elevation. So, are you going to have the stone piers or column increments throughout the whole entire cemetery, or is it just only the fences located on 3 sides?
Yeah, that's a good question because we debated that for a long time. And to reduce costs, we took those columns out between the church itself and the cemetery because it's such a small space and it's a more private space. The fence is going to continue around, but the columns will not. the columns are only on the 3 open sides. And that was a reduction in cost because those columns are quite expensive.
Understood.
Other questions or comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, I have no other hands raised at this time.
Well, I think it's a very sensitive approach that works well with the church itself, and brings in some of the historic character of other cemeteries to this one. So I think it's a wonderful proposal, and I personally support it. If there are no other questions or comments from the commission, would somebody like to put forward a motion?
One more comment. I don't know if I did not hear this. What's the colors on the masonry? Are you trying to match the color of the church or the existing, the masonry is existing, the columns, or they new? Are you going to try to match the color?
Yes, columns are new, and we will try to match the color of the church sandstone as best we can. Although that's a very old church, but when the sandstone is cleaned, you can get a real sense of the color, and that's what we're going to use to color match. So obviously, the new columns are going to look very, very new, comparable. But over time, with all the traffic around, I'm sure they're going to get weathered quite quickly. But I think the proportion of the stone and the color, as best we could match, that's the intent.
The fence color is going to be black. And what material of the fence is?
Oh, the material of the fence is aluminum. It's aluminum with a black coating, so it'll recede as much as possible from view. But currently the chain link fence is also black, but the new fence will be a black aluminum with the masonry columns, and the only difference is going to be where the signage for the cemetery is, and that would be I think primarily the people that construct fences and signs like this are out of steel, so it would be a powder coated black wrought iron or steel type, same size of a bar that the fence is, but it would have the name with the scrolling above. That would be the only difference, but still it would be black in color. So getting back to the masonry, I think it's a buff and brown color masonry sandstone that we would try to match. I don't know if that answered. I believe that's those are all the colors that we would have there.
Okay. I would like to make a motion if anyone else don't have no comments.
Go ahead with your motion, and also cast your votes after the motion is complete. Go ahead, Ms. Bailey, if you'd like to make your motion.
Oh, okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the design as presented. And also, just for file purpose, seeing the color of the stone and the fence to staff.
I think we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Alan. I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a second. Any further discussion? No?
No one with their hands raised.
Thank you. Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Harrison,
Mr. Harrison had to step away. Does not seem like he's back yet.
thank you. Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you. That concludes our certificate of appropriateness. We'll move on to reports. We do have nominations to the National Register of Historic Places. I'll hand it over to staff to make the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have two nominations before the State Preservation Board next week. As a certified local government, we have the opportunity to make comments on these proposals. And I guess I'll go through them individually. The first one is really our project. We were the sponsors of the grant application. It was a certified local government grant to fund the study and the nomination. We went through an RFP process and we chose Naylor Wellman as the consultant. Last month there was a public hearing held, and now the nomination's ready to go to the State Preservation Board. If you can go to the next slide, Carl. This is a map of the area being nominated. It stretches from the Inner Belt on the west to about East 55th Street and from Perkins Avenue to Carnegie on the south. There's over 100 contributing buildings in the district. If you can go to the next slide. You can see that it's being nominated both for its architecture and for its importance in the broad patterns of our history. The image on the map is a copy of the 1949 General Plan of Cleveland that included the development of the Inner Belt, and you can see the proposed district overlaid there. It was clearly a lot of the buildings and a lot of the construction in the neighborhood was a direct result of the plan and the creation of the Inner Belt. Next slide, Carl. The period of significance is from 1850 to 1972. On the left, you can see the oldest resource in the area, the George Merwin House on Prospect, and on the right is the most recent contributing building, which is the Valenti building, which is a postmodern building from 1972. So it covers a long range of history in the neighborhood. The next slide will show you, well, before I talk about that, I just want to point out that the district really covers the history from Millionaires Row through the commercial development of Euclid in the 1920s, a lot of automobile related development. And it's also significant because of its mid-century modern collection of international style buildings that were a direct result of the planning and the development of the Inner Belt. You can see some of the buildings from the 1950s, building boom here, and the next slide shows a few of the others, including 3101 Euclid Avenue, which we listed on the national, or we listed as a Cleveland landmark individually a couple of years ago. So we think it's a nomination that's going to bring a lot of potential redevelopment to the area. It will make properties eligible for the state historic preservation tax credits. So we think it's a great project. It won't negatively impact anyone who's already in the neighborhood in terms of building permits. It's strictly a National Register designation that's intended to provide incentives for future development. So I guess I did send the entire nomination to the commission. If you have any comments or would like to make a motion or a recommendation to the state board, that would be appropriate now.
Feedback from the commission.
Does this include the church at the corner of, I don't know the name of the church, but it's the sandstone at the corner of Euclid and 30th, I think? That's on sale.
It does. That church is actually already, I believe it might be individually listed on the National Register. It's already part of the local Cleveland Landmark District, but that would be part of the National Register District.
Other questions or comments?
We have nobody with their hands raised.
Knowing this area very well, for working here for the last 17 years, it's a really eclectic district, so I think, but fairly intact, so I think that this is a great nomination.
Madam Chair, Ms. Anderson has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Just want to commend the staff for their hard work on this project. I think this is a wonderful addition to our historic community. So thank you very much.
My only comment would be is that I think this, with this nomination, in addition to the review of Landmarks Commission, expansion of what the Landmarks Commission will now be reviewing, I do think we need to continue to support increasing staff to give these districts the attention that they need, knowing that the building number continues to grow, but our staff number is still very modest. So with that, do we have other questions or comments, or would someone like to make a recommendation for nomination?
I move approval for Midtown Historic District nomination.
Do we have a second of recommendation?
I second that.
Any further discussion? Mr. Pettit, why don't you call roll and announce the results?
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia?
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison? Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. And staff appreciates all the comments and support.
We'll move on to our second nomination, the Detroit Superior Bridge buildings.
Thank you. This nomination actually includes 3 separate buildings. They're all associated with the Detroit Superior Bridge. If you go to the next slide, Carl, it shows you the context. You can see the bridge on the right and West 25th Street to the west. And the next slide will show you the exact footprints of the building. There are 3 buildings here. One is the subway entrance to the bridge, which was built in 1939. The second building is the county maintenance garage, which was built in 1941 and expanded in 1964, as well as the county testing lab, which was also built in 1964. The nomination is not based on the architecture. It's based on, again, the broad patterns of our history, and in this case, Cleveland's transportation history. There's clearly a strong association here with the Detroit Superior Bridge, which is already listed on the National Register. You can see a few historic photos of the buildings. The building at the bottom is the subway entrance, and you can see that it's been altered more recently. A lot of the glazing has been covered over, but you can see it's art moderne style. It's sandstone material. The next The next slide shows the garage. This is a view from the west. And then the next slide is a view from the south, looking across the bridge. And then the third slide shows the county testing lab, where they tested materials and maintenance processes for steel and concrete for the county's roadways and bridges. Again, you've all received the entire nomination and the photographs, and we're here today just to ask for comments and a recommendation to the state board.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the commission? Any questions or comments from the commission?
Ms. Anderson has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
I checked out the photos when you sent them. It looks like the county is at least using part of these buildings, but not all of them.
Yeah, I'm not exactly clear on their status. I know some of these are vacant. I also don't know what the catalyst was for this nomination. I know there's a project proposed for this end of the Superior Viaduct, including an apartment building. The nomination was done by LDA Architects, their staff there. I don't know if these buildings will be incorporated into that new project, or if the nomination is just to protect them and preserve them and make them eligible for future tax credits. But I can't say I know what their status is with the county at this time. I know that the subway connection will remain, and if you've never taken the tour of the subway underneath the Detroit Superior Bridge, I highly recommend it. It's a great thing there, and I'm hoping someday we can find a way to make it a public space again. But I'm sorry I can't answer the question about the status right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions or comments? I guess the only, I get and agree with the nomination of the subway entrance and the maintenance garage. The testing facility, to me, seems like its character is very different, and wonder why that one's being included in the nomination. Is it the?
Well, I think it's over 50 years old now, so it is eligible in terms of time. It has an association with the county's ownership of the bridge over time. It's it's part of its the work they did on testing materials and maintenance for their roads and bridges throughout the city. It is connected to the bridge, so I do think it's got an association with the bridge, even though it's newer. It's marginally mid-century modern, international style. I do think there's an association here that they're trying to recognize.
Thank you for that explanation. Other questions or comments from the commission? Or would someone like to put forward a recommendation for nomination? Would someone like to put forward a recommendation for nomination?
I make a motion to approve the Detroit Bridge, Superior Bridge, for a nomination.
I second that.
So just for clarification, the Detroit Superior Bridge buildings for nomination?
Thank you. I was trying to read my notes. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Second agenda in front of me, so that's for that reason. So, okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? I think the only comment I would have is just echoing. I think the staff has been working very hard to get many of the nominations that have been made processed and into our overall bank of landmark, which I think is wonderful because I know that's a lot of work on top of everything else. Just echo my comment before is that I think these are worthy of preservation and oversight, but still am concerned about staff number compared to responsibilities for overseeing nominations, existing building maintenance, demolitions, and new proposals. So just also want to put that in here for the record. So with that, any other comments? Okay, Mr. Pettit, why don't you call roll and announce the result?
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
and Ms. Trout.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you both for your hard work. We'll move on to administrative reports. Do we have any administrative reports today?
I just have one item, just an update. Just to let you know that the demolition permit for the Luther Moses House was issued this week. We've been working for the last couple of months on a plan to document the building and to do salvage at the property. The photography was done last month by the city photographer, so that work has been completed. This week, Frost Maintenance has been working with the county land bank and their demolition contractor to salvage elements from the house, including interior features like windows and doorways and fireplace surrounds. There was an issue with the state of the roof when they started the work this week, so they may not be able to salvage as much brick as they had originally liked to. But the plan today and tomorrow is to salvage the remaining sandstone from the window sills, the window lintels, and the water course at the base of the building. So we expect that work to be completed by tomorrow. And at that point, the demolition contractor will take down the building. So that's where we are with that.
Excellent. Thank you for that update. Any other reports for today? No? Any other items from any of the commission members that we should discuss before we adjourn for the day? No? Then I guess we are adjourned for today, and we will see everyone in 2 weeks.
Have a good one.
You too. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.